Hi friends, welcome again to the Singer Studio. Today I want to talk about one of the oldest and most controversial ideas in singing. The idea of placing the voice. Ooh, it's scary even to say it. Some teachers insist that the voice must be placed, that they must be placed in the mask, while others dismiss the whole concept as fantasy. Now, as with most things in singing, the truth is somewhere in the middle. Before we dive in, if you enjoy these videos, you want to support the work that I do here, then you can buy me a coffee. The link is below. It's really easy, it's totally safe, it's quick, and it really helps me keep making this content, and I really appreciate it. So if you can spare just a few dollars, thank you. Okay, let's begin with the science. Once the vocal folds start to adduct and vibration begins, the sound energy cannot literally be placed anywhere. It is impossible. The idea that you can physically put your voice in the mask is anatomically impossible. As the great Richard Miller wrote in The Structure of Singing, the voice is not placed, it is produced. And the resonances, the voice is not placed, it is produced, and the resonances are adjusted. Cornelius Reed put it even more bluntly. There is no vocal placement, only sensations arising from resonance phenomena. Manuel Garcia, the father of modern voice science, spoke of controlling the instrument, never of placing the sound. And Herbert Witherspoon put it this way: we can only adjust the conditions under which the resonances occur. The danger of taking placement literally is that singers often try to push or squeeze the throat, or they create false nasal effects in an attempt to force the sound forward. And that is not helpful or healthy singing. We do it often because when we get that false brightness by squeezing here, our ears hear more and we like it. We can have more oral connection to the sound that we make. During my many years singing in the German opera houses, we would often come across what they would call stuck pig singers, stuck pig tenors, who would sing like that. Now, of course, I've said about how Pavarotti, when I heard him warm up, and I'm going to say that later in the video, I'm preempting my script. But that is your absolute end game, is not healthy singing. But here's the other side. In singing, what we feel is not actually always what is happening. And yet sensations can be powerful tools. Giovanni Battista Lamperti once warned, the sensation of tone is deceptive. One must learn to trust results, not feelings. But he and his father Francesco both use sensation as imagery to unlock a student's voice. So it's not straightforward, this. Lamperti also wrote, the voice must never be forced into a place. It must be permitted to find its own resonance. And he added, we sing not with the throat, but with the imagination. I myself, when I sing, always feel the voice buzzing on the roof of my mouth around a lifted and stretched soft palate. This sensation will stop me from narrowing or squeezing. I think in the video that I put out last week, that I have just recorded, that's why I'm wearing the same shirt, I am talking about how the tongue must be open and free. Well, because my tongue position, as I said in the video last week, 10 minutes ago, is always like that, then I feel that my voice is always buzzing on my soft palate. Now, this may not be anatomically correct, but it's an important idea for me, because my natural tendency is to produce a rich, thick, dark sound that needs the brightness to balance it, of the upper formants to balance it. But I know that for pupils of mine who naturally produce a brighter, more slender sound, having this upper mouth buzz might not be helpful. And this is where the great teachers come in. My old teacher, David Pollard, the great David Pollard, often encouraged me to feel the voice right here in the mask. He would say that I should feel all my sensations above here. He knew perfectly well that you cannot literally put the sound there, but he understood that this was a feeling, not an anatomical fact. And that was what mattered. He used that sensation to unlock the correct balance in my voice. Stop me from trying to over darken the sound. We did lots of work in the getting the throat nice and open. He was trying to give me a feeling that would allow me to free my brain when I'm on stage. I might be doing some difficult stage business, to find an easy, uncomplicated way of singing and allow me to be truly expressive. And that is what separates a literalist from a real teacher. The ability to use fiction to reveal a truth. It is the same with breath. The truth is that the diaphragm lowers and the ribs expand and manage the pressure. But how many singers are told to push from the stomach? Anatomically, it's nonsense. But for some singers, it encourages a grounded low torso support that stops the shoulders from rising in a clavicular way and doing damage. Of course, we know from other videos that there is a rise and forward of the shoulder as we open the rib cage, but it stops the clavicular area from tensioning. Yeah. Or we can take the idea of a yawn. You cannot actually sing while yawning, but imagining the beginning of a yawn, as we said last week, lifts the soft palate, relaxes the throat, and gives the students the freedom that we want them to have. Yeah. Or even some students talk about the resonance shining through their eyes or singing from their cheekbones. Yeah. We know that the sound doesn't beam out of the forehead, but if the singer feels that and the result is a free ringing tone, then the image has served its purpose. You have to remember that when a teacher is telling a singer to sing in the mask, if it's a good teacher, if it's a teacher that understands the proper anatomical correctness of what's going on, then the singer having that idea on their in-breath can do all the correct preparatory work. And if the end result is that they feel, that they're singing from the mask, with the forward tilted larynx, with the correct organized breath using the back of the diaphragm, having the SCMs open and relax as they should be, then all of these images have served their purpose. Think about vibrato. In reality, vibrato is a natural oscillation created by balance between air pressure and chord closure. But some students find it easier to imagine spinning the tone. How many great teachers have talked about the idea of the spinning ball at the back of the mouth? Yeah, you're not going to say, well, that's nonsense. What actually happens is the chord closes and the pressure between these adducting chords creates this sort of oscillating idea. No, you're going to say, feel a ball spinning, the idea of it spinning on a jet of water. It's the feeling that matters, not literal mechanics. That is why teachers must understand these fundamentals, but never cling to them so tightly that we crush the imaginative life of the student. And despite all this, I might still give a student an exercise that resonates fully in the nasopharyngeal area. For instance, an exercise I do a lot of is it's an exercise that David has given me. A very nasal sound. It's a yeah, really trying to warm up and release that resonance there. It's a brilliant exercise for warming up the top of the voice, for getting the resonance pathways activated. But it has nothing to do with forcing or pushing the sound into the mask or squeezing the throat to do so. It is simply a tool, a sensation, a trick to set things apart. Let's go back to this Luciano Pavarotti story. I was once at the Opera House and I heard him warming up. I never sang with him. I sang with Placido Domingo, but I never sang with Pavarotti. But I did hear him warming up once, and he began by making the most awful nasal grunts. He was doing it. It was a horrible sound. Yeah. It was like, oh my gosh, what is that? I didn't first know who it was. And he was a master technician and was just finding that nasal buzz, that vibration. And then he moved from those ugly sounds into the most beautiful 2-octave scales you would ever wish to hear, and everything made sense. He wasn't trying to sing nasally. He wasn't trying to squeeze his throat to have the gratification of that overly bright sound, which gratifies your own ears, makes your own voice sound very big to yourself and tiny to the listeners. It was just part of his whole process to get all of his resonances in balance and order. Once I was fortunate enough to attend a masterclass with the great Carlo Begonzi, one of my heroes. And Every singer that came up and sang in front of the maestro, he had a translator. The singer would sing, and then Carlo Bergonzi would stand up, and he would talk to his translator. It was in London, and the translator would say, "The maestro says you put the voice in the mask behind. No. You put the voice behind the nose and push." And it was almost comic. He was saying it to every singer. That was his way of describing what he felt. And it wasn't literally true. But it got him to the simplest form of vocalization that worked for him and allowed him to be this great stylist that he was. It freed his brain for the music. Alfredo Kraus in another masterclass said exactly the same thing. And you could see him getting very exasperated with the young students at the back of, around the back of Covent Garden, who were asking him complicated questions about pharynx and larynx. And all he was saying is, no, here, I remember Gillian Webster singing the Jules song, amazing singer, Gillian Webster, and the top C wasn't quite to Alfredo Kraus's liking, and at 10:30 in the evening, this 73-year-old gentleman suddenly started to sing the top C. Absolutely, no perfect pitch for me, absolutely amazing memory. And I saw, and Kraus said something like, "There's no such thing as cover." And he sang a note, and I saw Rudolph P. and I turned to David Pollard in front of me. I was standing behind them and went, "That was completely covered." And the other said, "I know." These singers didn't really understand the truth of what they were doing. And they'd got to a stage where they felt something, and it was a little dangerous because they were giving advice that's without the full knowledge of having a full vocal pedagogy training behind them, could be misconstrued. That's why I always say that often great singers do not become great teachers. Those singers who have had to work at their voice and correct issues and have an insatiable knowledge for how the voice works and a desperate desire to be able to explain it in as many different ways as possible and be empathetic to the listener, they're the singers, they're the people that can become great teachers. I certainly would not class myself in that, but I do love teaching. And if all of these things are a little confusing for you, if you're not able to go to your voice teacher and say, "What on earth is Mike talking about?" and they can't explain it, then get in touch with me. I teach singers all over the world via Zoom, and I love it. I never price myself out of a student who I want to teach, and I'm just loving these new connections that I'm making, and I'm so proud of the incredible success that many of my students are having and singing in some of the world's great opera houses now. I'm just humbled to be part of so many journeys. So if you want to work with me, get in touch. Back to the video. Why do so many singers feel resonance in the mask? The answer lies at acoustics. When the resonance balance across the pharyngeal, oral, and nasal cavities is healthy, sympathetic vibrations are often felt in the front of the face. Of course they are. The lifting of the soft palate and the opening of the forcial pillars, the pillars of forces, help create conditions for this resonance to succeed. The singer experiences, as I said, this kind of buzz. I don't like to fit it too far in my mask. I like to fit just there in the top of my mouth. But remember, it's not the voice itself moving forward into a new place, it's how resonance feels in the body. And that's where the psychological side comes in. Having a final place for the voice, even if it is imaginary, as I've said when I was referencing Carlo Bergonzi, gives the brain somewhere to stop searching. It kind of makes the technique easy. It packages it all up together. And once you have that consistent sensation, the conscious effort can step aside, and that allows more of the mind to be free for language interpretation and artistry, basically telling the story. Yeah. And as I said, the great teachers know that. I'm going to edit that out. In my recent video about Dimitri, when I slightly criticized him, I talked about how he lifted his tongue into his high notes, but his teacher left that because Yoffel knew that to change that would have damaged other parts of his voice. All of us can read a book about vocal pedagogy, but it's how we interpret that knowledge that makes us successful as a teacher. So in the end, we're coming back to this middle ground. No, you cannot place your voice. That is true. And you cannot place your voice in your mask. But yes, the sensations that you feel are real and they can be incredibly useful. The job of us singing teachers is to balance science with the imagination of the student, to use the sensation as a guide, but never as an absolute law. And that is how singing becomes not just technically sound, but also free, expressive, and human. And as I said, if your teacher is not okay with these concepts, or if they are too dogmatic and they're not prepared to accept the physical anatomical truth, then maybe speak to me, find somebody else, or at the very least send me a recording of your teaching. I don't want any of these videos to confuse you. I make these videos because I have a desperate need to share my knowledge accrued over 33 years being a professional singer and longer than that being a student of the voice. And if any of this confuses you, then write to me. You can see on the comments that I try to reply to all my comments. I reply to everyone that gets in touch with me. I do not want you to become confused. If you like these videos, you can do buy me a coffee. That's wonderful. If you can give me a like, leave a comment, tell me if you agree or disagree. Find our Facebook group, the link's in the description, and get involved there. We've got some great discussions. And again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.